What's up? How you doing? Here we are, Sunday night. Beautiful night tonight. Very mild. You have maybe a half a mile an hour breeze once in a while. Very nice though. I can see leaves moving, but not that powerful, but very enjoyable. So tonight we're going to talk about something that I'm a big fan of. World's finest chocolates, or chocolate, singular. Anytime I'm leaving a store and there happens to be some kid out there selling this stuff here, specifically this stuff, I will buy a bunch of them. Because I remember when I was a kid, I used to sell this stuff. Although back then, they seemed a little bit thicker. Kind of made them thinner now, slender. But I remember I'd go and sell, and my father would buy like 80% of them. You know, last couple of days or something, he'd say, come here, give me the check. He'd write a check out, he'd buy like 30 of these things. But I'll tell you something, and this was around 6th grade, 5th grade, around there. So the wrapper was paper, and in the back it was a coupon, or some people say coupon, but it was a coupon for Burger King. And it would be like something like, I don't know, buy a Whopper, get a large fry free, something like that. And I would save all mine, and when I would do my exploring of downtown, I'd ride the trains all day. Subway system, I was on it all the time riding the trains. And then I would make a pit stop, and in those days, Burger King was connected to Greyhound bus terminal. So I would go in there, and once in a while I would pop a quarter in. They had these chairs at the terminal where you could put a quarter in and flip a switch, and you could watch television for like 15 minutes. So I would pop a quarter in there and relax for like 15 minutes, sometimes a half hour. Maybe watch Alice. And then after that I would go next door to Burger King, which was connected, and I would order, you know, a Whopper, and then I'd give them my coupon and I'd get a free fry. So there's a story behind these that goes beyond that. So anyway, the other day I was coming out of Lowe's, and there was this looked like a 6th grader, and she said, would you like to buy some chocolates? And I walked a few feet after her, I mean beyond her, and then I turned around and I said, what are you selling there? And she said, world's finest. So I said, sure, give me 7 of them. Actually, I bought them all. This is what she had left, and I bought them all. So then she wrapped up her stuff and she took off. She went home. I don't know, called it a day. But I'll tell you a short story that happened many years ago. So this was a Saturday. I was second grader, very long time ago. And I was downstairs early in the morning, because I didn't sleep in. You know, either I was watching cartoons, or 90% of the time Saturday morning I was watching cartoons, but every once in a while I would be downstairs early and I'd bump into a friend and we'd explore the neighborhood. So that particular Saturday I was downstairs early, and a friend of mine was in front of my house at the sidewalk, and I ran into him and we were talking there and trying to figure out what to do. There was always something to do. It was just a matter of time to figure it out. So as we're talking, I noticed behind me another friend was walking, and he was a year younger, so he was a 1st grader. And he approached us and he said, hey, what are you guys doing today? He said, I don't know. And he said, you guys want to come along with me? I'm selling stuff for my school. And so I said, sure. So we went around, and he was a bit of an aggressive salesman. His father worked at Sears, so he had the education of being a salesman from the father. Anyway, we went around to a bunch of houses, and he was selling stuff. It wasn't this stuff, it wasn't the chocolate, it was other stuff. So all of a sudden we get to this house, and rings the doorbell. To me, this creepy looking guy opened up the door, had his hair combed back, it was a bit greasy, Looked like he was around, you know, early 40s, right around there. And I'll tell you who he looked like. That movie Grease, that crater face guy that they drag race against, that's what he looked like. So opens up the door, and my friend, you know, gives him the sales pitch. Says, I'm selling stuff for my school, would you be interested? And the guy invites us in. Now, I didn't want to go in, but my friend, he went in. So, you know, we're going to go together. So we go in, and first thing that struck me was the house was empty. So we get in the door, go in, and there's a staircase that goes up to the second. It's a one-family house. It goes up to the second floor, and right as you enter on the left-hand side is a room. And the only thing in that room is kind of like a couple of chairs and a television set, a black and white TV set on a stand. So we continued down this long hallway, and in the back was the kitchen. Very plain, almost like Mr. Rogers' kitchen, very plain. And he had a table, a round table, wooden, had these wooden chairs all around. And he said, sit down, you know. He goes, you guys like something to drink? I said no. So I'm thinking he's going to poison us. We didn't have fentanyl back then, but they had other stuff. So we sit down, my friend, you know, he's all, yeah, give me, you know, he's very, he's one of those kids, you know, that was very friendly, you know. So we sit down, and he opens up his refrigerator, and I look, and the only thing that was in there was a ½ gallon of orange juice. So he pulls out, there were 3 of us, and he pulls out 3 glasses, small ones, and he pours each of us a cup. Now, I'm not drinking any of this stuff, but my friend, you know, my friend who's doing the selling, he's gulping it down. And I'm getting this uneasy feeling like we should not be in here. I mean, I was feeling like if I said, okay, let's all go, the guy was going to say, you can't go anywhere. It would be like that scene from Bronx Tale, where those bikers go in the bar and they, you know, start wetting everybody with the beer. And the guy says to them, now you can't leave. I felt like, you know, even though that movie was after, but I felt like that. I felt like the guy was going to go, yeah, where you guys going? You can't leave. So I said to my friend, the other one, I said to him, oh no, I said first to the guy, to my friend who was there, you know, selling stuff. I said to him, we got to go. So let's go now. And he's like, no, I want to stay. I want to stay, he says. Turned to my other friend. I thought he was going to say the same thing. I said to him, we got to go. And the second I said we got to go, he's like, yeah, we got to go. So he got up. We're getting ready to go. I tell my friend again, let's go. He's like, no, I want to stay. Doesn't even know the guy wants to stay. So we ended up leaving. My friend didn't want to come. I mean, we're not going to, you know, sit there and who knows what's going to happen. I mean, I told him several times, let's go, let's go. He wanted to stay. So, you know, we left. And I remember we were playing all day. It was one of those busy days of playing. We played all over the place. And then it was around 5:30. And like I said before, his father worked at Sears. So 5:30 comes around, and now we forgot all about the morning. Kind of escaped our mind, weren't thinking about it at all. So his father, I see him, because he lived 3 houses away from my house, parks his car, had a station wagon, a red one, and I see him coming towards us, crosses the street, and he says, hey, you guys see my son today? And we both said no. We forgot. So he says, oh, okay. Turns away, starts walking home. And I looked at my friend, I go, wait a minute. I go, we saw him. Remember this morning I go, we went to that guy's house and he stayed? He goes, oh yeah. So I yell over to my friend's father, and I said, yeah, I go, we did see him this morning. I go, he stayed at some guy's house. We told him to leave, and he wouldn't leave. So the first thing he's thinking, like, as I would be thinking right now, child molester, right? Back then, we didn't know anything about that. We thought maybe, you know, murder or something like that, but not, you know, the other stuff. We didn't know anything about that back at, you know, when I was in the 2nd grade. So first thing he says is like, you got to show me where this place is. So I go, okay. So we start going up towards that direction, but on the way we pass by my other friend's house, the one that's with me, and his father was home at that moment. You know, he had the key out going through the front door, and he says to him, he yells over, he's like, hey, you know, explains to him what's going on, and he comes along with us. So now it's a bunch of us. Now it's, you know, a few kids from the neighborhood. It's me, my friend, his sisters, and the two fathers. And I'm all nervous. I'm expecting the guy's going to say, you know, I don't know, your son never was here, and meantime he killed him or something. So we walk, and this is like maybe about 4 blocks away, up on the hill. So we get up there, and I'm nervous. I'm expecting bad news. So we get to the house. I say, it's this house here, and there's a stone wall. For me back then, it seemed like it was high, but in recent times I passed by there, and it's probably like 2.5 feet. So me and my friend are behind the wall, and we're looking, and the two fathers go up. They ring the doorbell, and the guy, that creepy guy, opens up the door. And they say, the father says to him, is my son here? And it took like 5 seconds, but that 5 seconds to me seemed like an eternity. 5 seconds. He answered the question. I didn't hear what he said. And then I see my friend, he comes up from the side. He goes, I'm right here. Father says to the son, go down there. Joined us. And then I could hear, you know, the father saying to him, don't you ever, you know, it was like telling him, don't you ever take my son and have him in here. You know, he was giving him a lecture. Because he knew what the guy was up to, obviously. I mean, why would you be hanging around with this kid that you don't even know all day? So on the way down, we leave. On the way down, I ask my friend, I go, what happened all day? He's like, oh, he was very nice. He was giving me cookies and milk and things like that. From my age now, thinking back then, it's pretty obvious what the guy was doing, you know, trying to gain the trust of the child. So I always had that image in my head, that creepy face, and, you know, and I knew, because I was taught early about, you know, hanging around with strangers, and, you know, that they were up to no good. Not all of them, but you never know. You have to be cautious. And I knew that because when I was a kid in kindergarten, number 2, they brought in a guy, Officer Friendly, police officer from my town, and he gave us a talk about, you know, safety things like being kidnapped, not talking to strangers, looking at both ways before you cross. So I absorbed all that information, and I always remembered the words of that officer about strangers and not allowing them to grab you. So I always, you know, I had to get away every time there was somebody, you know, even to this day, I'm very skeptical. Forget strangers, I'm skeptical about everybody. You know, I don't really trust, you know, most people I meet. It takes a lot for me to trust you, because I think most people are schmoes when it comes to, you know, what they think, and, you know, and whether you can trust them or not. So anyway, we leave. That's 2nd grade. 4 years go by. We don't even think of that situation again. We never talk about it. Never comes up in conversation. And now it's my turn. I'm selling stuff. And now I've sold stuff along the way, but on that year I decided I was going to be very aggressive. I'm going to go all over the place. I'm going to sell a lot of stuff. I wanted to be like at the top of my class. I wanted to get some of the prizes that other kids get every year. And I wanted to do it on my own. I didn't want my father buying stuff. He could have bought stuff, but I wanted to have extra stuff that I sold personally. So I got up really early that Saturday morning, and I was selling this world's finest chocolate. So I went all over my neighborhood. And I remember it was fall time, it was a little bit crispy out, and I went everywhere. I rang doorbells. I was like really aggressive with it, you know, not rude, but just, you know, ringing doorbells. I was running around. I went to a lot of houses. I was selling a lot of stuff. And back then they wanted you to get the money up front. So I got all the money. I had it inside. It was all cash, you know, change and all that. So all of a sudden it started to get dark out. And I was satisfied with the amount of product I had sold that day. And so I looked over and I saw one house, and it was not too far from me. And I said, I'm going to go to that one house, and then I'm done. Then I'm done. So I looked at the house, and it was pitch black inside, not even one light. I don't even know why I chose that house. But I knew that an elderly couple lived there. I used to see them all the time, you know. They would, you know, they were 2 old people, husband and wife, and I'd see them go shopping. You know, he'd bring the car out to the front, She would get in, you know. They looked like they were in their mid to late 70s, and then they'd come back with groceries, and he'd help her bring them in. So I go, seem nice people, you know. They seem like nice people, and I would, you know, feel comfortable if they opened up the door. So, but it was pitch black inside. Not one light was lit, and this was a one-story house. So I go over there, ring the doorbell, and all I hear is somebody who is really, really pissed off coming down. You could hear like footsteps, boom, 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 like they're walking down a long hallway. And as they're walking, they're slamming doors. It's almost like they're passing doors and they're just slamming them hard. And the first thing I imagined was like a nightmare. First thing I imagined was, watch it be that guy from, you know, a few years ago with my friend. Watch it be him. And as I'm thinking this, the door opens up really abruptly, and I see the guy that we were in the house with 4 years prior. And he opens up the door and he sticks his head up right by the screen, and he says, "What do you want?" Like really loud and angry. And the second I saw it was him, I spun around and I took off, and I had the envelope that I spent all day collecting money, and it was upside down, and all I could hear was the change and the money falling out as I was like running across the street to get away from the situation. And I could hear ching, 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 you know, all over the street. And I didn't care, I just wanted to get out of there, because this guy, you know, was like really creepy looking. And so anyway, to this day, the story doesn't make sense to me. Number one, why he was in there with the lights off. Number two, I knew who lived in that house visually. I mean, I knew who they were by face. And I never seen him in there. It was just these two old people. I don't remember a guy in that house living in there. So it wasn't just that night. It was every night after. I mean, every day after that, I would look up the street and I could see the house, and I would still see those two old people, but never him. So anyway, I had a neighbor one time. He was telling me, he goes, "You see that house over there?" Pointing to the house that I'm speaking of right now. He says, those two old people, they had a son who died in Vietnam back in the, you know, mid-70s. And I go, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, died in Vietnam." Now, you know, I never saw any guy there, you know, I mean, mid-70s, I don't know. I never knew that story to be true, but that's what he was telling me. And I've never seen that guy again. But here's the weird thing about that story. Right across the street from that house that I went to sell chocolates that night, right across the street was my friend. He lived in that house. The friend that was in that guy's house 4 years before. And I find that to be a strange coincidence. Very strange coincidence that my friend lives across the street from this guy that we felt was up to no good that day when we went in there back in the 70s. So, you know, and I've never, it's been many years, my friend is still around, but he's not close by anymore. I don't see him. But I want to ask him, he must remember if he had ever had any contact with that guy ever again, except for that one time that I know of. Did he ever run into him? I mean, I'm sure that guy asked him about his address. He must have said to him, you know, all those hours he was with him that Saturday, he must have said to him, "Hey, where do you live?" And my friend was big on giving information out. You know, me, not so much. I don't really, you know, give that kind of information, but my friend, he would have. And 4 years later, where's this guy? This guy's right across the street. Right across the street. So, very strange story. But I remember when I was selling this stuff, and I could hear like boom, boom, boom. He was like walking with anger, and doors are shutting. You could hear doors slamming. I mean, just as, and I'm thinking, watch it be him, and it was. I could never forget that face. I mean, if I was able to draw right now, like the way Picasso, not Picasso, Da Vinci, that style, I could draw an image of him and I would show you and you would be freaked out. Like, really creepy looking guy. But he opens up the door, and the screen door was between me and him, and he's like, "What do you want?" And he was like all angry. I could see his eyes like jumping out of his head. And I'm like, why did I pick this dark house? You know, and I picked it only because I knew that 2 old people lived there. So we continued to live there, a few houses down from that guy. He must have seen where I ran to, but and I never turned back to look if he was still there watching, you know. But we continued to live there for decades after that, and I never saw that guy ever, although I did see the old couple. Never saw him. I don't know what he was doing in there that night with the lights off. So yeah, so that's what happened, and that's the memory of the world's finest chocolate. Yeah, who knows, you know, like, I'm very curious to you know, locate my friend and ask him if he had ever had any contact with that guy beyond the contact that I know about. You know, and I never said to him years later, I must have seen him, you know, hundreds of times after that. I never said to him, hey, remember that guy when I was in the 2nd grade and you were in the 1st grade? Remember that guy that you stayed over his house that Saturday, the entire day there? Guys spent the day watching TV, eating cookies and ice cream. I mean, cookies and milk. I go, that guy, I ran into him, and he was right across the street from you. That, I don't know why I never, it wasn't up until recently that I actually thought of that, you know, that, you know, wait a minute, my friend lived across the street. I just thought that guy, you know, rented that place. I don't know. So, that's what happened. But strangers always gave me the creeps. You know, I have to know you in order to, you know, feel comfortable around you. If I don't know you, I don't trust you. Don't trust you. But, yeah, I don't know why I never asked my friend about that. I don't know, I never said to him, hey, and I think, I'm trying to think now, I think those were like the years that, you know, I was hanging around with other kids, because I used to hang around with him, you know, more when I was younger. Used to go over his house. He had a basement, and he had air hockey in the basement, and his sister, who was a bit of a tomboy, had an Evel Knievel poster in the basement. It was a Snake River Canyon jump, and I was a big fan of Evel Knievel, and I used to go down and I used to love that poster. Thought it was an awesome poster. It was a good 3 feet by, I don't know, 2 feet, good sized poster. It was taped on the wall. And back then, you know, there was always one parent home. And I remember we would be in the basement playing air hockey, and I would see his mother coming down the stairs with a basket full of laundry. So, as far as I know, both his parents are still alive, as far as I know. And I know he's alive because, well, I don't know for 100%, but I assume he's alive. He's around my age, but you never know. So anyway, that's it. Good night.